Holger Rune never meant to say it, but once the words left his mouth, there was no taking them back. A casual interview, a simple question about fellow players, and then he said her name, Eala. The way he paused, the way his eyes shifted, the tennis world noticed everything. And what happened next would turn a private admiration into the sport's most talked about revelation. In the world of professional tennis, there are players who carry more than just their own dreams onto the court. They carry the hopes of entire nations. Holger Rune, the Danish sensation with the fiery temperament and devastating backhand, had become exactly that for Denmark. At just 21 years old, he'd already broken into the top 10, defeated multiple Grand Slam champions, and established himself as one of the ATP's most exciting young talents. His rise wasn't just meteoric, it was necessary. Denmark hadn't seen a tennis star of this magnitude in generations, and Rune wore that responsibility like armor. Across the tennis universe, in the WTA circuit, another young player was experiencing her own form of pressure-filled stardom. Eala, the Filipino trailblazer, had become more than just a tennis player to her country. She was the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam title at any level when she captured the US Open Girls Singles Championship, the first to break into the WTA top 2. Every match she played wasn't just about rankings or prize money. It was about proving that a nation of over 110 million people belonged in the upper echelons of tennis. Their paths had crossed occasionally at combined ATP-WTA events. The professional tennis circuit is smaller than people think. The same hotels, the same practice facilities, the same player lounges where future Hall of Famers sit next to hopeful qualifiers. Rune and Eala existed in overlapping circles, but never quite in the same spotlight. He was the temperamental genius fighting for Masters 1000 titles. She was the determined barrier breaker, grinding through WTA 125 tournaments and working her way up the main tour. But here's what made their dynamic interesting. They represented the same archetype in different contexts. Both were carrying national expectations that would crush lesser athletes. Both had achieved breakthrough success at young ages, and were now navigating the treacherous waters of living up to early promise. Both possessed that rare combination of technical brilliance and mental fortitude that separates the good from the potentially great. And both, whether they admitted it publicly or not, understood the unique loneliness of being your country's sole representative at the highest level of an individual sport. The tennis community is tight-knit, despite its global spread. Players notice each other. They watch each other's matches in locker rooms. They share practice courts and fitness trainers. They understand, in ways that outsiders never could, exactly what the person across the net or across the locker room is experiencing. So when young players achieve something remarkable, their peers take notice. When Eala won crucial matches or broke new ground for Filipino tennis, other young players on tour saw. And Holger Rune, despite playing on a different circuit, despite the geographic and competitive distance between them, was one of those players paying attention. Nobody knew just how much attention he'd been paying. Not until that interview. Not until the moment his carefully maintained professional facade slipped just enough to reveal something genuine underneath. Because in tennis, as in life, it's often the unscripted moments that tell the truest story.
What happens when admiration becomes impossible to hide?
It was supposed to be a routine press obligation. The kind of interview that Holger Rune had done hundreds of times before. A post-practice media session at a Masters 1000 event. The type where journalists ask predictable questions, and players give carefully rehearsed answers. The setting was casual, a shaded area near the practice courts, with the sound of tennis balls echoing in the background. Rune sat in his practice gear, relaxed, seemingly ready to breeze through another 15 minutes of standard tennis talk. The journalist started with the expected questions. His preparation for the tournament, his thoughts on his draw, his recovery from a minor injury that had kept him out of the previous event. Rune answered with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this dance 1,000 times. Yes, he felt good. Yes, the knee was fine. Yes, he was looking forward to the challenge. Standard, professional, forgettable. Then came the question that changed everything. Holger, you've spoken before about watching other young players on tour. With the WTA side also here this week, are there any rising women's players whose games you admire or pay attention to? It was meant to be a throwaway question, the kind designed to fill time and maybe generate a quote about tennis's next generation. The journalist probably expected Rune to mention Coco Gauff or maybe Mira Andreeva, the obvious names, the safe names, the players everyone was already talking about. But Rune didn't give the obvious answer. He paused. It wasn't a normal pause, not the brief moment athletes take to formulate a diplomatic response. This was different, longer. His eyes moved slightly to the left, the way people's eyes do when they're accessing genuine memory rather than reciting prepared talking points. And then he smiled. Not his usual press conference smile, the one that's professional and measured. This smile was involuntary, almost embarrassed. Alex Eala, he said, and the name came out softer than his previous answers. I think what she's doing for Filipino tennis is incredible. The way she fights in every match, the way she's had to qualify and work her way through smaller tournaments to get opportunities at the main tour level. It's really impressive. The journalist sensed something. You could hear it in the follow-up question, the slight edge of curiosity entering their voice. You follow her results? Another pause. Rune shifted in his seat, and for a split second, the confident top 10 player looked like a 21-year-old who'd just been asked about a crush. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of us do. She has a really complete game. Her movement is excellent, and her mental strength, especially in tight matches, that's something you can't coach. You either have it or you don't. She has it. Here's what made this moment extraordinary: the specificity. Holger Rune wasn't offering generic praise. He wasn't saying she's talented or she works hard. The empty phrases athletes use when they don't actually follow someone's career. He was referencing specific aspects of Eala's game, her movement, her mental toughness in pressure situations. These weren't observations from watching one viral highlight. This was the analysis of someone who'd watched her matches, multiple matches, someone who'd paid enough attention to form genuine technical opinions. The journalist pressed forward, sensing they'd stumbled onto something. Have you two ever practiced together or talked about tennis? Rune's expression shifted again. He was clearly aware now that this line of questioning had gone somewhere he hadn't anticipated. We've talked a few times at tournaments. Just, player lounge stuff. But she's really dedicated. I respect that. And then he added something that would become the most analyzed sentence in tennis social media for the next week. She's someone I think is going to surprise a lot of people. She has everything it takes to break into the top 50. Maybe, and when she does, people will realize how special she is. When she does, not if. When. That certainty, that specific prediction, that personal investment in another player's future success. The interview continued for a few more minutes, returning to safer topics like his serve technique and tournament strategy. But the damage or the revelation, depending on your perspective, was already done. Within an hour, the clip was online. Within 2 hours, it had been shared across tennis, Twitter, tennis, Instagram, tennis, TikTok. Within 3 hours, Filipino tennis fans had created compilation videos with the title "Holger Rune Respects Alex Eala" set to emotional music. Within 6 hours, tennis gossip accounts were posting side-by-side photos of Rune and Eala with caption after caption, speculating about what this really meant. Holger Rune had accidentally done something that professional athletes are trained never to do. He'd revealed something genuine, something personal, something that felt to everyone watching like more than just professional respect. The internet was about to lose its mind, and this was only the beginning. If there's one thing tennis fans excel at, it's detective work. And when Holger Rune's interview dropped, the tennis internet transformed into something resembling a crime scene investigation unit. Except instead of solving murders, they were solving the mystery of exactly how deep Rune's admiration for Alex Eala actually went. It started on Twitter. A Filipino tennis fan account posted the interview clip with the caption "Holger Rune speaking about Alex Eala with that smile. I see you, Holger." Within minutes, the quote tweets began rolling in the way he paused before saying her name. He really said when she does, not if she does. I'm screaming. Professional athletes don't talk about other players like this unless there's something more. But the real investigation began when someone decided to scroll back through Rune's social media history. And that's when things got interesting. A user found a post from 7 months earlier. A practice photo Alex Eala had posted from a training session in Spain buried in the comments. 73 comments down was a simple fire emoji from Holger Rune's verified account. At the time, nobody had noticed. Rune had 800,000 followers. Eala had about 200,000. It was easy for one emoji to disappear into the noise. But now it felt like evidence. Then someone found another interaction. A story Eala had posted 5 months ago, celebrating her first WTA main draw victory. She tagged the tournament and a few sponsors. Holger Rune had viewed it. Instagram doesn't publicly show story views to everyone. But the fan who discovered this had screenshot proof from Eala's close friends list that somehow leaked. The screenshot showed Rune's account among the viewers. The detective work intensified. A tennis photographer's archive revealed a photo from Indian Wells, one of the combined ATP WTA events. Background of a practice court shot. Holger Rune and Eala both waiting for courts engaged in what appeared to be conversation. They were laughing. The photo had been taken 4 months ago. It had received maybe 40 likes when originally posted. Now it was being shared thousands of times with captions like, "They've been talking," and "Look at how he's looking at her." YouTubers who covered tennis drama began creating videos. Holger Rune's secret crush read one title. Why Eala has ATP players' attention read another. The algorithm did its work, pushing these videos to hundreds of thousands of tennis fans who might never have heard of either player before. TikTok became its own ecosystem of speculation. Editors created romantic montages, using Rune's matches cut together with Eala's matches, set to trending songs about secret admiration. One video compared their playing styles, noting surprising similarities in their court positioning and shot selection, suggesting they might have discussed strategy. It got 2.3 million views. Reddit's tennis community created a mega thread titled "The Rune-Eala Situation." Everything we know, users compiled every interaction, every possible connection, every tournament where they'd been in the same city at the same time. Someone discovered they'd both trained briefly at the Mortoglu Academy years ago. Though at different times, someone else found an old interview where Eala mentioned practicing against male players to improve her game. Could Rune have been one of them? The Filipino tennis community was experiencing something entirely new. Eala had put their country on the tennis map through her achievements. But this was different. This was one of the ATP's biggest young stars publicly praising her with a level of specificity and warmth that felt personal. Filipino sports talk shows debated what it meant. Morning radio programs in Manila discussed it. It wasn't just tennis news anymore. It was entertainment news, relationship news, national pride news, but not everyone was celebrating. Some of Eala's fans questioned why this was even a story. She's an incredible player on her own. A one viral tweet read, "She doesn't need validation from a male player to be worthy of attention." The tweet got 15,000 likes. It sparked a secondary debate about whether the attention on Rune's comments was actually undermining Eala's individual achievements by making her notable only in relation to a man's opinion. Danish fans had their own reaction. Some found it endearing that their tennis star showed this human side. Others worried it was a distraction. Holger should focus on his game, not on WTA players, read one Danish tennis forum comment. He's had an inconsistent season. This is the last thing he needs in the media. Tennis journalists, the professionals who actually cover the sport for major outlets, found themselves in an unusual position. Was this a legitimate story? One respected reporter tweeted, "I've covered tennis for 20 years. Players admire each other all the time. But the way Rune spoke about Eala, that level of specific technical knowledge combined with that personal investment in her future success. I've genuinely never heard one player talk about another quite like that." The speculation reached a fever pitch when someone discovered that both Rune and Eala were entered in an upcoming combined event in 2 weeks. The possibility of them being at the same tournament, potentially giving interviews about each other, potentially being photographed together, it became the tennis internet's most anticipated subplot. But here's what nobody expected: the backlash that was about to come. For every person celebrating Holger Rune's comments about Eala, there was someone else who saw the situation very differently. And as the story continued to dominate tennis social media, the criticism began to grow louder, more pointed, and increasingly impossible to ignore. It started with a viral thread from a prominent WTA fan account. Can we talk about how problematic this whole Rune-Eala thing is? A top ATP player's opinion suddenly makes Eala legitimate in people's eyes. She's been grinding and achieving for years. But now people care because a man noticed her. This is exactly what's wrong with how we cover women's tennis. The thread struck a nerve. Within hours, it had been retweeted thousands of times, with journalists, former players, and tennis advocates adding their own perspectives. The criticism wasn't directed at Rune's admiration itself. Most acknowledged that his comments seemed genuine. The problem, they argued, was the outsized attention those comments received, compared to the attention Eala's actual achievements had generated. A tennis journalist wrote a column titled, "Eala Doesn't Need Holger Rune's Approval." The piece outlined Eala's accomplishment, her Grand Slam junior title, her steady climb up the WTA rankings despite limited funding and support, her role as a pioneer for an entire nation's tennis dreams. These achievements, the article argued, deserved wall-to-wall coverage on their own merit. Instead, we're talking about her because an ATP player mentioned her name, not a Holger Rune problem. That's a tennis media problem. The criticism expanded to include the nature of the speculation itself. Multiple Twitter users pointed out the uncomfortable reality that people were essentially shipping two real athletes who'd never publicly indicated any romantic interest in each other. These are real people, not characters in a TV show. The way some of you are treating this is genuinely weird and invasive. Even some of Rune's own fans began to question whether the attention was helping or hurting him. Holger's had a rough few months with inconsistent results and some on-court controversy. Now, instead of talking about his tennis, we're talking about his feelings toward another player. His team has to be furious about this becoming the narrative. Tennis podcasts dedicated entire episodes to debating the ethics of the situation. One popular show brought on a sports psychologist who specialized in working with professional athletes. When you're a top player, you're trained to be incredibly careful with your words. Every statement gets analyzed. The fact that Rune let his guard down enough to speak about Alex with that level of personal investment, it suggests he either wasn't thinking about the implications, or he felt strongly enough that he didn't care. Either way, it's put both players in an uncomfortable position. But for every critic, there were defenders. And the defense of Rune's comments was equally passionate. Why is it wrong for athletes to show genuine respect for each other? Asked a viral TikTok from a tennis coach. Rune spoke about Alice's technical abilities, her mental strength, her work ethic. He gave specific knowledgeable praise. That's not sexist. That's not patronizing. That's one elite athlete recognizing another elite athlete. The fact that we're so shocked by sincerity says more about us than it does about him. Filipino tennis fans, many of whom had been following Alice's career long before this controversy, offered a different perspective. For years, we've been trying to get international tennis media to pay attention to Alex, one Filipino sports journalist tweeted. We've celebrated every win, every ranking milestone. But outside the Philippines, she was largely ignored. If Rune's comments finally get her the international recognition she deserves, why would we be mad about that? A former WTA player turned commentator weighed in during a broadcast. I remember what it was like being a young player trying to break through when established players noticed your game and spoke about you publicly. It mattered. It raised your profile. It sometimes led to better practice opportunities, more media coverage, even sponsor interest. If Rune's praise helps Alice's career, that's a good thing. We can acknowledge the systemic problems and how women's tennis is covered while also accepting help when it comes. The debate revealed deep divisions in how people viewed the situation. Was this about respect or romance? Professional admiration or personal interest? A heartwarming moment of tennis community, or a symptom of deeper problems in how women athletes are perceived? Reddit's tennis forum became a battleground. One highly upvoted comment read, "The people upset about this are overthinking it." Two young players who understand the pressure of representing their countries noticed each other's games. That's it. That's the story. Everything else is projection. The response, equally upvoted. The fact that this is even a story proves the point. When was the last time a WTA player's comments about an ATP player became a multi-day news cycle? We don't value women's tennis the same way. And this whole situation is evidence of that. Professional players began to weigh in. Carefully. A top 20 WTA player posted on Instagram, "Shout out to all the women grinding on tour who deserve recognition, regardless of who's watching." The subtext was clear, even if she didn't mention Rune or Eala by name. An ATP player posted a photo from practice with the caption, "Respect to all players working hard, men and women. We see you." Again, the message was deliberately vague, but seemed to address the controversy. The tension reached a peak when a major tennis publication asked Rune's team for an official comment. The response was carefully worded, "Holger has great respect for all players who dedicate themselves to professional tennis." His comments about Alex Eala reflect his genuine admiration for her work ethic and talent. He wishes her continued success, professional, diplomatic, completely devoid of the warmth and spontaneity that had made the original interview go viral. The internet immediately noticed the difference. One comment read, "They got to him. The lawyers and PR people took over." Another, "That statement has zero emotion." The interview had all the emotion. Which one was real? But the biggest question remained unanswered. What did Alex Eala think about all of this? In the end, what started as an accidental revelation became a reminder that professional athletes are more than just their rankings and results. They're young people navigating complicated lives under intense scrutiny, trying to find moments of genuine connection in a world that's constantly watching. Holger Rune's comments about Alex Eala revealed something that sports fans don't always see. the human side of competition. The respect, the recognition, the understanding between people who live the same unique reality. Whether their connection was friendship, romance, or simply mutual admiration between peers. One thing was certain. Both players handled an unexpected situation with remarkable grace. And in doing so, they showed the tennis world that sometimes the most interesting stories aren't about rivalries and conflicts, but about respect and recognition. What happens next in their careers and their relationship, whatever form it takes, remains to be seen. But this moment will be remembered as the time when an honest answer to a simple question reminded everyone that behind the rankings and the trophies, tennis players are just people who notice, admire, and support each other. What do you think really happened between Holger and Alex? Was it just professional respect or something more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take on tennis's most intriguing connection. And if you want more stories about the drama, emotions, and untold moments behind women's tennis, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're bringing you the stories that matter, the controversies that spark debate, and the human moments that remind us why we love this sport. See you in the next one.